I'm now joined by Anton Harber, who is Executive Director at the Campaign for Free Expression. Anton, thank you so much for your time this evening. You said in a tweet today that journalism itself is on trial, that the right to cover court cases of the powerful is being tested, and that we must be on high alert. What are your fears in this case?
Thank you very much. Let me just explain up front that my organization, Campaign for Free Expression, is one of 3 organizations that have applied to be amicus in the case, that is, a friend of the court. And this is because we want the court and we want to assist the court in addressing the issue of whether this is a SLAPP case. SLAPP being a strategic litigation against public participation. In other words, a case that's designed not to pursue justice, but to harass a person or an organization who is doing the kind of work Karyn Maghan is doing, and other journalists. So we're going there specifically to try and have the court to consider this new area of law. It's new around the world. In South Africa, we're hoping to establish law in confronting the issue of whether this is a SLAPP case and how the courts should deal with SLAPP cases.
So some people are saying that this case is merely a delay tactic, a delay for former President Jacob Zuma so that he does not have to face his corruption trial related to the arms deal. What would you say to that?
I would say that it would fit with his long-term strategy, the Stalingrad strategy of seeking every delay, every appeal, every technicality to postpone the case. It fits with that long-term strategy. But in arguing that it's a SLAPP case, we are saying it's also intended to have a chilling factor on journalists covering his and other court cases involving corruption. And I think that's a very serious concern, which is why we want to argue it before the court.
In terms of what transpired, how Karyn Maghan reported on those medical records, to your knowledge, is there any merit in this prosecution by former President Jacob Zuma?
On the facts that, as I understand them, there is very little merit, and that's because what she did in getting documents as they were tabled in court or registered with the court from the prosecutor is quite normal journalistic practice. There's nothing untoward about it. And the accusation that she released his medical records is really not true. It was a letter from his doctor. It was no medical records, and it was released, in fact, by his team. And he has made no attempt to have them declared secret or private in any way. So I think there is a lot in dispute in this case, and I think it's going to be an interesting and important case for that reason.
Should the decision be in favor of former President Jacob Zuma, what kind of legal precedent does that set for journalists reporting on these kinds of high-profile cases with both criminal and political implications?
Our concern is that it has a chilling effect, in that journalists start to fear that if they cover these cases the way they should, thoroughly and properly, then they themselves might be subject to harassment, prosecution of this sort. And clearly that has a chilling effect on those who are sent to cover these cases. We really have to try and ensure that cases, particularly politically sensitive cases, are done fully in the open, with journalists free to report them as they have always done, because it really is important to the justice system and the judicial process.
So the case has been postponed to the 8th and the 9th of December. What happens in the interim for journalist Karyn Maghan and for other journalists who, like her, continue to report on some of these sensitive, highly politicized cases in the interim? We've seen a lot of rallying support from other journalists, but until December, is there a feeling already that journalists are hesitant, or has there been such support that the sentiment is to just ignore this for the time being and carry on with the good work being done?
journalists have generally rallied behind Karyn in a very strong way. I think there's great concern that it's not being treated as urgently as it should, in that there's now a long wait, and during that time, she is left in limbo. Her work is affected, and the social media onslaught that we have seen, what appears to be an organized onslaught against her individually, will continue, I think, making things very tough and very difficult for her. So we really hope for a quick resolution on this case.
Last question before I let you go. We've seen a number of these types of onslaughts on journalists who report regularly on high-profile cases. What have we seen over the last 10 years in terms of upholding the safety and the sanctity of journalistic, not only freedom, journalistic integrity? What kind of response have we seen not only from within the journalistic fraternity, but also from the legal sector to support that? So you point to something important, which is this is part of a worldwide trend that's making the work of journalists more difficult in many countries. And putting them at risk in many countries. I'm pleased to say that in South Africa, the journalistic community has rallied behind her. The legal community have come forward to assist with defense. Her employer has come forward to assist with the costs of that defense. And I think in the final instance, media freedom has had strong defense from the judicial system, certainly from the Constitutional Court. So I think we can be confident that the Constitutional Court will stand firmly on the side of defending media freedom as outlined in the Constitution. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening and for providing your insights on the matter. That was Anton Harber, who is the Executive Director at the Campaign for Free Expression.